Lights are dark. Okay, welcome in. It is Thursday, which means it's another episode of Chiropractic Is Se. I am Dr. Paula Ruffin.
And I am Dr. Erica Peabody, and we are always happy to be here. Even in the midst of like chaos in a week, it's like it's become such a grounding point, which I love that for us, and I love that for anyone who's listening.
Absolutely. And of course, our topic today is the overstimulated child, which everything we're going to discuss today translates into the overstimulated adult as well.
Right. And all the way down truly to the overstimulated infant, because they're just picking up on whatever is in and around in their world, which is overstimulation just in general.
Yeah. And I think this topic, we talked about kids in chiropractic last week, and it's really an important topic to continue on because we're in this world of overstimulation for all of us. And I think it's important that we, number one, help everybody recognize what overstimulation actually looks like. I know we're saying that, and we can easily say screens and stress, but when it comes down to just specific things, what does it look like for you in your world? How, as Dr. Erica just said, how's that translating to your kids that maybe you don't even realize there's things in your kids that they're picking up on your cues from overstimulation? It's a whole downstream effect. And then, of course, we would be remiss if we didn't discuss how chiropractic actually helps to resolve and solve so much of our health issues in this overstimulated world.
Yeah, it just gets me thinking right away to a story, just a really quick story about my grandmother who she passed away, I want to say like 16 or 17. So a little over 10 years ago. And my cousin went down to visit with her. My cousin at the time was around 18 years old. And after like a few days of hanging with grandma, then watching TV, then getting on her phone and hanging with grandma and grandpa and doing whatever they were doing, my grandma stopped her, an 18-year-old, in her tracks. And she said, when do you get a chance to just think? Like, when do you allow yourself a chance to like just put stuff down and sit and think? And so that actually brought my awareness to life in general, right? And I do my best, especially through the summertime, because I can just be outside, but by about 4:00 on Sundays, making sure that there's a priority in the evening to stare, literally, not kidding, into outer space and just think, because if that's not in our time, it doesn't happen. So that's just one thing I was thinking about, because growing up during our era, it was like, get outside and go play and whatever. But then it was like imagination and make believe and all those things that help the vagal tone, which we didn't know about way back then. But the overstimulation, we had it in different ways, but it wasn't because we were constantly bombarded and we had time to sit around and think. I think it's so important.
It was so much easier to regulate. And as kids too, I mean, every kid has stress growing up. We're like, oh my gosh, what could a kid possibly have to be stressed about? But as you mentioned earlier, I think it's just a really important thing to take note of, is that your kids pick up on your cues, and do they feel safe to express their stress or express the things that they're going through based on what you have? Are you a safe place to land? Mm-hmm. And I think that's amazing. What a great observation by your grandma, because that's all of us in today's world.
I was in a yoga class last week on Saturday morning, and the instructor, she has a 3-month-old baby. I think he's 3, maybe 4 months now, and she's still breastfeeding. And she said that she's usually breastfeeding him and scrolling on her phone. And every time she can hear her husband come, something about her makes her feel like she needs to put her phone down. But I'm thinking about, one of our colleagues had said at one point, we are not ready and able and capable of being exposed to trauma and politics and weddings and births and deaths and this and that, like all within seconds of each other. We're not designed for that. And I was just thinking about like the stress hormones, like, I don't know if she's political or whatever, but I'm thinking about how wound up people get. And it is, it's hard to put your phone down. It's hard to put the screens down. And when she had said that, I was like, oh, think about the stress hormones that are flowing through her body potentially, or anybody else's body for that matter. And then literally like right through the breast milk. And
it's a thing.
Yeah, that's how it starts so young.
Yes. I mean, even in utero, if you're a stressed out person, or if you have a stressful relationship, that baby picks up on those cues in utero. And you probably also, learned this. I mean, we both learned the same things. Mm-hmm. It's a matter of what had the most impact on us. What do we remember the most? Yep. And I remember when we were talking about fetal health and pregnancy, and they actually showed births of babies from moms that were the husband and wife were constantly fighting, or the baby was in an environment where it was always peaceful. And when you are pregnant with a child and you're constantly fighting, the baby comes out literally. I remember watching these videos, and the baby comes out ready to fight. Mm-hmm. And that translates to all things in life for that poor child. So it's so critical. Like, is your baby already overstimulated in utero? Are you giving it the proper signals through what you're doing, as a mother? And unfortunately, if we're going to be the ones breastfeeding, we do have to protect our health even more so than dads do. Like, we're just doing all the friggin' heavy lifting on that. It's just the reality of it. But
well, you probably have toddlers that come into your office, and like, mom, in order to get them to sit still, their go-to is the phone. And I'm like, I would rather this child be up and wandering around the table and wandering around the room than you hand the child a phone, because at 2 years old and 3 years old, it's like they're already being trained that when they're bored, or when they just have a moment, instead of using imagination, they start to, just have that connection to the phone. And then that they're doing a direct link to depression, all ages, and content consumption instead of creation. Like, it's awesome. Like, Dr. Paula and I, we're constantly trying to, work to get our messages out and work to share health and stories and all that. So content creation inside of entrepreneurship is important. But if we get to the point where we're just scrolling, that's where we can literally start to change our brain chemistry. And we have to start to shift that. And it's a dopamine hit, it's a neurotransmitter down, it's all the things, right? And we have to be really conscious, and especially super conscious, and put limits and boundaries around it for those that can't make those proper choices, because even we can't make those proper choices.
No, and I taught a workshop last night, and the workshop that I was teaching was all about boundarying is that a word, boundarying? Putting boundaries around your time, your people, people around you, your bandwidth. And this is if we can teach our kids young. So, but one of the biggest things, so what we did was we put the big sticky notes on the wall, and we said, and this was an opportunity for everybody to learn from everybody. So one of the topics was what works for me. One of the topics was what is one habit I need to stop. And then the other two topics, I forget, but anyway, not relevant to the story at the moment. But so then we had everybody write something down on another Post-it, and they came up and they put their answers. And not a shocker, but the number one thing as adults is scrolling, is doom scrolling. And it was interesting because then on the what do I need help with, because we're all entrepreneurs in this room, that one of the biggest things was I need help with social media. And so this was a discussion point about, wow, what a crazy paradox is we're all saying we need help with social media, and yet we're saying we're on social media too much. So what is your intention when you get on social media? And so if you can learn how to be more efficient and effective and not doom scroll and not get pulled into that, and channel that into, okay, I'm gonna do this video, I'm gonna post it, and then that's it. I'm setting my phone down and don't get caught up into the scrolling. But it was this really kind of crazy paradox when you think about it. And kids aren't working on their businesses, and they will sacrifice their schoolwork to be on devices if they're allowed to do so. And that just pulls them even further into the depths of failure. They're not keeping up with their schoolwork, and they're seeing, they cannot understand the comparison syndrome issue, because all they see is the good stuff, and they don't necessarily understand that it's not reality. And so it's their ability to decipher, or inability to decipher and to regulate beyond what they're seeing on social media.
Well, I was just thinking about, as you're talking about that, as social media as a business platform, because we're trying to capture those that are not capture, but capture the attention and share a message with those that are scrolling. So it's like, you can't scroll, you need to scroll, you need to be on socials because that's where everybody's scrolling, to not scroll, to scroll. And it's like, it's a wacky world. And, so that's only just as adults. So the children, and then I think about all the ways that they're stimulated. So if we put in, I was watching a mom's feed this morning, and she was saying, like, I get the bottom of the barrel cereal because nobody wants like the end of the cereal box. And I just think about the kids that wake up in the morning and they're eating like sugar and whatever processed food cereals, and to get off to school. And I just think about what that does when it goes in the body is chemically overstimulate that child. And then they're surrounded by the chaos of school, and they have to be on computers. And then that's like, we've got that overstimulation. And then when you have a phone and you never put that down, we have that overstimulation. And then we have sports in between, and maybe some arguments with siblings, and then not enough sleep. And then we get up and do it day after day after day, week after week, month after month, and year after year. And it is truly a recipe for disaster. And I talk to the kids as they're leaving the office, especially the like teenage athletes. And it's like that feeling that you get after you get adjusted, that Control Alt Delete for the entire nervous system. When you leave here, see if there's something, you go for a walk around the parking lot. That's why I usually tell them, go walk around the parking lot, walk around the block. But I'm going to put signs going out the door down the sidewalk that just says, take yourself for a walk after your adjustment. Like, give your nervous system a minute to not then go back to the fast food restaurant and the next sporting event and the phone in the middle again, because it's too much. It's way too much. And let the adjustment give you bandwidth, but then don't like crowd it back out because you have more bandwidth.
Yeah. And I'm looking at Lily's message about a couple of things she said here, was that front porches used to be a place that you could sit and relax and let your day, process your day. You really see porches on new builds. And while that's true, if you think about it though, it's more of the backyard. So think about it. Older homes back in the day, it was the front porch, and you had more connection to your neighbors, and you said, hey neighbor, and everybody took a walk and everybody chatted. Well, now we all spend that time in our backyards. And if you're like me, I do go back there and I will just sit in my garden, as beautiful as it is. And I just take it in, and I take in the flowers, and I don't have my headphones on. And so that, in her next comment, when she says it's important to listen to nature sounds and the breeze through the trees and the birds, and so many, I'll say influencers, and they're like, you really, got to get stuff done, and go out and take a walk and listen to a podcast and take a walk and listen to a book. And I'm like, no, like, don't listen to anything. Stop the input other than what nature is intending. And when you go out and you get in the sounds of nature, and more kids. We need to get more of our kids out. They're slashing recess, and these poor kids can't get outside and get fresh air, and you need to connect with nature. That's a whole grounding scenario that helps regulate and reset your nervous system. And you won't do that if you have a book in your ear or music or a podcast. Like you can take 30 minutes to completely detach and re-regulate. And that will make you so much more productive in the rest of your day. And if we could just take even the high school kids and make them go for a walk around the track at lunch. We weren't ever required to do that in high school. You could just go and sit outside, and half the kids went outside and smoked because we had a smoking section in high school. It was crazy.
That's funny. There's a tool, and it's a vagal tone tool, and it's like name 5. So using the 5 senses. So name 5 things you can see and 4 things you can hear, I think, and 3 things that you can feel, and 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. And like going to, and I don't know if it's that order, but it's like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 with the 5 senses that can really start to get you out of not only the comparison like you talked about, but like just bring you back. Because when you're out, we always talk as chiropractors, it's like from above down and from inside out, not from outside in. Like that's a very, like, it's a pathological angle outside in. It doesn't work for our physiology and for our health. And we can clearly see that as adults, but it's just like multiplied and magnified as a child, as a teenager, and then as a child. And then you add in, I'm like really kind of tuned into high school a little bit, and like mean girl stuff and bullying, and you have all of that as overstimulation too. So when you're getting up and getting ready to go to school, and you've got all these things in your screen going, and also you have anticipation of something like that going on in your day, it's just too much. And so when your computer has that spinning wheel of death, our bodies get like that. And the adjustment comes in and helps to reset the entire system.
And then they go back. That's the thing, is what's the training beyond that? Yeah. I have a friend of mine that has a 12 and a 14-year-old, and she manages screen time. She is just a hawk about it. And every day it's a battle, even though the kids know that there's this boundary around screens, and they're continually asking for more. And, it makes her insane. So talk about that level of stress. Mm-hmm. You're trying to do this really great thing for your kids, teach them how to regulate without a screen, teach them that having that screen is more detrimental than everything else, TikTok and what they can see on YouTube. Like, it's nutso out there. It is the Wild West. And I don't care what you tell me, parental regulations, parental stops on these devices do not work. I attempted to put a parental, whatever you call it, a block or limitation or whatever, on my phone when my daughter was younger, so that she couldn't get into stuff. And then I think I went to type in something. I was looking up like baseball or basketball or something, and it blocked it because it had the word ball in it. And I was like, that's how we're going to do parental regulations? Like, I can't say ball. What? Yeah. So, so they try to say that, oh yeah, it's really good, you can put parental regulations, but realistically, you can't, in my opinion and from my experience. And she's found actually a very similar experience, is that her best opportunity is to not allow certain apps, and then also just limit the time period, and keep them outside, and put them in sports, which of course she's like, well, now she's the crazy sport mom that has to drive from one end of Florida to the next 3 hours on a Sunday to put her kids in one soccer game. And she's like, she's like, when did I land here? And she goes, there's nothing local. So that's overstimulation. We're stealing our children's childhood by forcing them to think that they need to be high level athletes at age 10 and
Well,
that they can't enjoy life.
And that they're not allowed to, I mean, I remember growing up, we weren't allowed to sit around and be bored. If we ever used that word, like we were in trouble. But I think it's like something to strive for these days, is letting children be bored, letting yourself be bored, and not using that word necessarily, because it is kind of like, ugh, I don't like that word. But if we can just have some time to sit around and think and sit around and, not be trying to, it's crazy. I had this one mom in, and it was in the fall, and she had said between her 4 kids, she had 96 practices and games within 1 month time. Like, you guys, this is not health anymore. This is not, and I get, people are going after scholarships and they're trying to do this and trying to do that, but like, at what cost? For what? At what cost? Like, this is not health.
Stressed out kids, stressed out parents. And
Eating
again, the
fast food.
kids are in the run. And what's interesting too is her son. So she's going through a divorce, and she always tells me how easygoing her son is. And but he's got this issue with reflux that he's had for a couple of years now, and things have been tumultuous for, shockingly, for a few years, few more than a couple. But he's probably been dealing with this for maybe 2-3 years. And, because the dentist was like, he's got this erosion. Well, he's got reflux. This started at age 8, 9. And they eat very healthy. She's also a hawk about their food and organic and all of that. Well, and it occurred to me the other day, and I said, you always say he's such an easygoing kid. And then her daughter is very much like outwardly expressing her emotions over the divorce and changes and things like that, where he's just like, yeah, it's okay. And I said, but maybe he's not okay. Maybe all of this is coming from he internalizes things where she expresses things outwardly. Because also, why and what age did we get to? Age in time, not biological age, but what age did we get to where 8 and 9-year-olds get reflux? Like, when is that a thing? And of course, we know that babies are born and they oftentimes will have reflux, but I'm always like, well, babies spit up. Did we normalize normal babies spitting up because they have such underdeveloped digestive tracts by nature, and that then we made it a disease?
Right. We made it a disease and gave them meds.
Right. Like,
what?
Where did that come from? No,
yeah. We're not.
It's not okay.
No,
not okay. Yeah.
So we see, and I've shared this story before too. It's like, so I worked for a chiropractor. I ran her office in Alaska when I was up there for 3.5 years for my undergrad. And we had this, it was 2 moms, and they adopted 5 children, and they would call the office, hey, can we get in for our attitude adjustments? And that's really what it is. It's like, take the overstimulation of the world that's then revving up the system. We're all edgy. We're redlining everywhere. And then let's just adjust, get back to parasympathetic, bring it down a level, and get on with not only better moods, but that creates better family dynamics. It creates more bandwidth for the moms. And then, everyone's just better. So again, at this point, if you are listening to us and you are not seeing a chiropractor, like, I'm going to ask you to start questioning what you're doing.
Well, and we keep talking about that and how we're not cracking bones.
Yeah, no.
We are creating an opening in your nervous system that allows you to adapt better to all things in life, physical, chemical, emotional, and what have you. And that because we're constantly living in this fight or flight, this saber-toothed tigers chasing us all day long, how do we get it to stop? Well, we have to slow down. We have to stop running. We have to get our brains and our bandwidth back, reclaim that rest, digest, and repair through vagal strategies. And there's a lot of things that we can teach our kids to do besides getting adjusted, probably weekly, I would say, and helping parents understand that just because your child doesn't have back pain doesn't mean they don't need chiropractic, because kids kids will often present more with tummy problems because they have stress that they don't understand how to regulate. They don't understand how to express their emotions yet. And so that can get internalized into digestive issues. Kids have eczema, they have ADD, ADHD, they might have headaches, they might not be good sleepers. And if we go to babies, we've got babies who don't latch properly, and babies who cry and they have colic, and maybe they have chronic ear infections. So babies and kids present with a completely different set of circumstances, but it is all nervous system dysregulation.
Right.
And those babies then become adults, and then they show up in our offices because they have, let's just say, neck pain. And then as we start to ask questions, we start to unravel things, and they're like, oh yeah, I was a pretty sick kid. Yep, got it. Makes total sense. And all of that builds up until it really builds up. But we want to help people when they're younger. We're going to help you today. No worries about that. But
yeah,
but think about like kids who have constant meltdowns or outbursts, or these are all signs that the nervous system is just on fire. Bedwetting, anxiety. I can't tell you the number of teenagers that I see that have anxiety. I'm like, why? Like, it just should be normal teenage bullshit that you deal with. But why do we have anxiety so much so that we're putting all these kids on medication? That's not what needs to be happening. They need to be regulating very differently, and seeing a chiropractor, doing things to help that vagal tone, and just unplugging.
Mm-hmm. Just stare it into outer space. I mean, literally, that's like, I mean, not zone out and scroll, but just literally like zone out and think about like what's ahead and what's behind, and reflection and all of that. I think about all the teachers. So especially this year, and I don't know what in particular it is about this year, but a lot of the teachers that are in undercare with me are really having very stressful years. Like, they're not really able to teach anymore, and they're looking for their first ability to retire more than ever before, because there is so much dysregulation. So if you have 30 kids in the class, 25 to 30 kids in the class, and only like 3 or 4 of them know how to regulate themselves, like, that is literally what's going on. And I had a high school teacher in the other day, and she's like, I'm like in this class and I'm talking to them and I'm teaching them, and they're like, they look at me and then they just keep talking. They just keep doing what they're doing instead of actually listening. And she's like, as soon as I can get out, and, teachers' jobs are some of the most honorable in all the land, right? Being the ones to be so helpful in the raising and teaching, obviously, of the kids, and the formative years when they're there. And they're just, so many of them are like, get me out of here. Like, I can no longer teach because there's so much dysregulation. But I got to tell you, it starts with the freaking Frosty mini wheats and the Fruit Loops in the morning. And it starts with the screen time so that mom can get ready, like, just get on this screen. And then there's no way to avoid screens in school. Like, we have to be on computers. So then that's regulated for that, even though that's not really that healthy, but it's also not appropriate for the average American to spend 7 hours per day on the TV. Like, what? Where is any time? Where's any margin? Margin is my word this year now. It hasn't quite worked yet. Okay. So I'm looking for margins in my life where I'm not running from this to this to this to this to this. Like, I'm looking for margins in my world. And I want to maybe just even offer that as a word out of this podcast, to just think about, where can you get margins around this event and that event and this drive here and that drive there. So yeah, just something to think about.
And also, no is a complete sentence. So don't pile everything else onto you. And I think, to your point about teachers, because I've got teachers too, and it's the teachers that have been in, I'll say practice, I guess, have been teaching for a number of years, where, let's just say, in the last 10 to 20 years, teachers have seen the evolution where there used to be one child in the school, then it was one child in the classroom, then that started to multiply, and now it's one child not, and what I mean is like some kind of child with like neurodevelopmental issues, ADD, ADHD, and then that has actually flipped on its head. And to your point, it's now maybe 2, 3, or 4 kids in the classroom who know how to regulate, when the whole classroom now is really should be special needs.
Yeah.
And teachers, mainstream teachers, are not necessarily trained for that. And so then what happens is we get into this, it becomes easier then to tell the parent they have to go to what is an IEP, or they have to get their kid tested, because the teachers then want these kids on medications, because then that's their only way to be able to regulate, because they haven't been taught any other way to help these kids, which is like, I get it, they're trying to teach, but also then, because you've seen this major flip on its head of children's health and decline of neurodevelopmental health, that asking the question, why are we medicating so many kids now? That doesn't make sense. No. And it's not better diagnosis, you guys.
No.
It's lack of nervous system regulation properly through the things we do at home, to making sure they're under proper chiropractic care, to making sure dietarily they're eating healthy. And if they're eating healthy when they go to school, what are they choosing in the school cafeteria? Mm-hmm. If you're trying to feed your kids healthy and they go to the school cafeteria and they get, Fruit Loops and Apple Jacks and a cookie, that's not lunch.
Right.
That is not lunch. That is like legalized cocaine. They're literally trying to self-medicate through sugar, hit those dopamine centers.
I was thinking about when I look back to my middle school years, it was kind of like when I get to finally make choices of what I'm going to eat, because in elementary school, it was like, you're getting pizza today or getting a burger. Like there wasn't a lot of options, but then you start going through like an actual line. I would get a cookie and I would get onion rings. And then I would get one of those big fluffy rolls, the ones that are like, you squeeze them down, they become basically dough. And I would pull the onion ring out of the onion, or the onion out of the onion ring, and eat the fried part, and a cookie, and the roll with some butter on it. And like, you guys, especially for a reactive hypoglycemic, I was a really good student, but I had to fight through a lot of it just because I was talking about dysregulated by food. But I know it's atrocious to even think about. But I was also thinking the other day, as I was talking to one of these teachers, I was like, wouldn't it be so cool if, like, during breakfast time, because they're feeding them breakfast, lunch, and even an afternoon snack, but what if there was a chiropractor on their way in to school? Can you imagine the difference? I was on a mission trip to Peru, a chiropractic mission trip, and we adjusted between 5 of us, 4,500 people. And many of them were at schools, like big, like 1,000 children would line up and get on our tables at the school that day. Unfortunately, we didn't get to like make that part of regular life, but I think one adjustment is better than none. But I would be so curious with those hundreds and thousands of children that got adjusted that day, what it was like to be in the school that day, because it's that significant. And then you multiply it by that many people. And
think about it, that somehow, some way in schools across the country, and I hope that it's become a little bit more frowned upon. I'm not sure, but I know it still happens, is the nurses can go around and vaccinate your kids without your knowledge. They can just inject your kids with what they think they're missing without your knowledge, but yet we can't have a chiropractor in there. Yeah. So if that doesn't tell you that it's about money and power and government, I agree with you. Wow, what could we do with one chiropractor in every school, adjusting every kid, couple times a week or once a week? That would just be a major game changer.
I would be curious if it was even just once a month, like if that became a regular thing where it was like the first Monday of every month, the chiropractor will be here And on your way in, you get your spine checked and adjusted where needed. And yeah, it was just something, I don't know, maybe it's a seed planted that would germinate and maybe grow. It's really hard to tell. And I'm just going to make it as a possibility that will stand out there. So yeah,
sometime in your lifetime.
Yeah, there's a lot of things happening right now that we never thought we would see in our lifetime. So
Yeah.
there is some big changes going towards health and healthcare, and it's not as fast and it's not as broad, but it's pretty big. And we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, like the simple flipping of the food pyramid. Like, let's get some real nutrition going on. So,
Oopsie, we had it upside down for 30 years.
oh, whoops,
Oopsie.
Daisy. Sorry, your children's food at the cafeterias and the dietitians that were trained and the hospital food. Sorry about that. That was exactly
Oopsie.
opposite.
We didn't mean to make 2 generations of people unhealthy.
All
Whoopsie.
fat and disease laden, like, oh, whoopsie daisy. But the other part I really think is that's the Food and Drug Administration shouldn't be sleeping in the same bed, right? I'll stand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we could go, of course, that's like just a little like, let's just look at this window. And it's like, it's impossible. It would be impossible for Dr. Paula and I to stop. So let's just like call it a week, and now we'll see you guys back next week.
And I do want to say before we sign off that I did put, I don't know, 4 or 5 links in the show notes with studies that have been done on chiropractic and overstimulation and neurodevelopmental disorders. So you can drop into the show notes. You can sign up for our newsletter, and you can look at those studies for yourself, because, you know, we have all kinds of clinical stories we can tell. We've been seeing miracles for a combined almost 60 years now. And, you know, maybe 50, I don't know, whatever. It's a lot, but either way, if some people just need to see for themselves. So go look at those studies. Let us know what you think. And as always, please make sure you're subscribing. And we appreciate you being here and engaging every week. If you're catching the replay, leave us a comment and hit the thumbs up button so that more people can see our show. So thank you so much for being here, you guys. We'll see you next week.